Welcome in to the 45th episode of the Southern Boy Sports Podcast. My name is Drew Holland. My co-host Ben Clay.
Going on, guys?
Episode 45 and episode 44, we were joined by a very special guest and Josh Newberg. Since then, our main man, Dylan Raiola, we don't know him. I don't know why I said main man.
Amen.
Very, very well and highly touted recruit Dylan Raiola committed to Georgia. We're recording Monday night, May 15th. He has committed to the University of Georgia. We'll jump into that. We've got some transfer portal action going on, transfer portal news. If you clicked on the episode, you know we're just about to touch on that. Got TJ Finley, Casey Thompson go to the group of 5 level. Keon Coleman is still uncommitted, so we'll jump into that. And a couple transfer running backs I want to get to as well, Ben. But before all that, I'd like to say thank you for the support on episode 44. We really do appreciate Josh joining us. Got some pretty solid listens and, above average over on YouTube as well. So we do appreciate that. And, continue to tune in, continue to like and subscribe over on YouTube. Give us 5-star reviews, and it really does help, on both those things. And we always do love people tuning in. But, Ben, after thanking the viewers, you come very next. You're second most important. If you can take that, how's this past week been for you?
It's been good. It's kind of we're getting down to the end of school, so
sure.
Now that baseball's over, you kind of have to lock in on that and make sure I'm getting all the work done. But it's kind of been simpler. What day was it? Yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
Saturday got my own car finally. So.
Oh man,
that's nice. It's finally my
Daniel got a car.
Mm-hmm. It's like this 2017 Ford Escape.
Oh, it's like an SUV though.
Nice.
I mean, that's a nice car. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not. Of course, he's going off to college. He doesn't.
He's done with school.
Yeah, he's done.
But he'll be back for like the SBs and then graduation.
That's right. Yeah.
But he's not going back. So
Ben finally got his own ride.
Finally.
Hopefully, yours treats you a little better than mine. Mine is driving fine right now. Luckily, the manual stick shift though is falling apart just a little bit on me. But you know what? Out of the bigger issues that I've gone through over the past couple of weeks and months that the listeners and viewers have heard about, I had to take a phone call with the towing company in the middle of an episode. They understand the struggle, and but wish you luck and a little bit better luck than me. Let's start first. Shout out over on YouTube to our man Mike Pagliasati. Thank you very much, Mike, for the comment on episode 43. It is much appreciated. I'll quote, "I know you are a young man, but quit taking your hat off and taping those papers on the desk. Tapping those papers." You misspelled tapping. Yeah. "It's so distracting. It's hard to listen to you when you are constantly fidgeting around constantly." Yes, sir. You know what? I've taken his words of wisdom. Instead of printing out the PDF that I usually have, the couple sheets of paper that I usually have, I'm keeping it on my phone just for you, Mike. So I hope you appreciate. We appreciate you viewing. We hope you left it a like. So thanks for the view of episode 43. Thanks for the constructive criticism. We're going to jump into episode 45, though, Ben. Let's start with Casey Thompson, Nebraska to FAU. Many people thought he may stay at the the Power 5 level. Teams up with his former head coach and Tom Herman. FAU has got a good one, and I will say the door's open in the AAC, right? The door's open in the AAC. You got Tulane sticking around, but you're, an exodus of teams like Houston, an exodus of teams like Cincinnati and UCF, obviously over to the Big 12. The door's open. Maybe a good Power 5 quarterback can get the job done for him. Let's hear your take on Casey Thompson to the Florida Atlantic Owls, Ben.
Yeah, I think it is smart for him. You get to pair back up with Tom Herman, and I think that's a move he definitely probably wanted to make. So I guess for him to feel comfortable in a place, I think this was the right place to go. At this point in his career, he's got to go somewhere where he can just look better, because in the past in these Power 5 schools or conferences, he has not looked the greatest. So maybe going somewhere where the competition's a bit lower and he can excel. I think it's definitely something that he needed to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, in 2022, 2023, just about 2,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and a QBR of 64.5. Obviously, spent his first few years as a Texas Longhorn. But yeah, he gets the opportunity to come in and replace a guy in N'Kosi Perry, who was the quarterback and the captain of that offense under Willie Taggart. Now, obviously, it's a new regime in Boca Raton. Casey Thompson kind of gets to take the reins. So I'm excited to watch him. I mean, you're definitely in a competitive AAC. East Carolina is going to be a competitive team. SMU is going to be a competitive team. Same with Tulane, Memphis. All those teams will compete with a team like FAU. Hopefully, Casey Thompson, listening to some more major and national media, he's obviously in the driver's seat to come put up some numbers, get himself drafted in the later rounds of the draft, make some money, Ben. Most importantly, let's go to a guy who's going to be maybe in the USFL next year. That's TJ Finley. No disrespect to our guy, former LSU and Auburn Tiger. He's in the Sun Belt now, Ben. He's a Texas State Bobcat. Yeah, they just lost their QB, Brady McBride. He went over to Appalachian State to replace Chase Bryce. I mean, obviously, he's a pretty solid quarterback. He's playing at the Division I level. I mean, that's something that a lot of people take for granted. I was listening to Good Golf. They have a podcast, so I was listening into that just for a little bit. And they were talking about how hard it is for golfers. People will say, like, if you don't win an event in golf, you're just bad, right? You're not really, you've fallen off. But to make a cut in golf and on the PGA Tour is almost impossible, right? It's really, really hard to do. It's something that a select amount of people can do. Same thing with playing Division I football and starting for a Division I team. Obviously, it's really hard to go out and do that. Not a lot of people get the opportunity to go compete for the starting quarterback job at Auburn, LSU, even Texas State for that. But in the grand scheme of college football, we're not here to play, Ben. We're here to talk about what's going down. Texas State definitely a step down for TJ Finley. His counterpart, his buddy over at Auburn, Zach Calzada, went to the FCS level, went to Incarnate Word. So that kind of just shows the quarterbacks that you had at Auburn last year for Brian Harsin, I guess. But your takeaway here, the Bobcats landed D1 a Power 5 quarterback, I should say.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to Casey Thompson's, where this guy, he's got like 1 year left of eligibility. So 3?
Yeah.
He's a grad transfer and he's got 3 years left.
I kid you not. I was looking at his Twitter post. Let me make sure I'm not getting this mixed up.
Is it when he entered the portal? He's like, I entered the portal with 3 years of eligibility remaining.
Yeah, and everyone was like, how? What? How do you have 3 years of eligibility left? And it was like, I'm almost positive that's him. Hold on.
No, I think I bet you're right.
Yeah. Auburn quarterback TJ Finley will graduate and hit the transfer portal with 3 years of eligibility remaining.
Wow.
That's crazy. How does he have 3 years left? He's played 3 seasons already.
Yeah, what happened?
He redshirted last season.
Wait.
He had a medical redshirt last season, I believe, and then he was hurt.
Because he hurt his ankle or whatever.
Yeah, so 3 years.
He could do something at Texas State.
We'll see.
Part of the rebuild.
Yeah.
He's still a player where he just has to look good somewhere. It's hard. It's really hard at a D1 level to look. If you look bad, you are automatically bad. I mean, there's no room for error at the D1 level, especially in an SEC school. So him being able to go to Texas State, have a bit more room, be the starter there, and just put up better stats, I think will be good for him, because him and, like I was talking about, Casey Thompson, they both just need the stats, because they both could be quality quarterbacks, but they've just not been playing players that I think are on their level.
Yeah, he'll go play for GJ Kinney. What a pull, Ben. I was sitting here trying to think of his name. GJ Kinney, the head coach at Texas State. They've got the opportunity. They're going to be stuck, kind of log jammed in a pretty competitive Sun Belt, whether it's James Madison, App State, Coastal Carolina with a returning QB in Grayson McCall. That being said, good opportunity for TJ Finley to thrive. Let's go the opposite, right? We talked about Power 5 guys who dropped down to the Group of 5 level. Let's talk about Group of 5 guys making that jump up to the Power 5 level. Let's start with the Louisiana commit, Trey Amos. He's committed to Alabama. He was a veteran starter at Louisiana. Definitely will provide depth for guys like Caleb Downs and other guys in that secondary, whether it's Kool-Aid McKinstry, guys like that. He'll be able to go in. He'll be able to play some nickelback. He'll be able to go in and cover the slot. He's a good DB. He's maybe not one of those guys who's going to be the poster boy in the Alabama secondary, but a guy who's going to come in. He's going to be solid for you. Lock down a little bit on defense. He definitely has the experience, played some good ball over at Louisiana. So I'm sure Nick Saban's really excited to get him in. He preached all spring long, all offseason long about how he needed depth in the secondary. He comes out, gets a guy in Trey Amos, who seems to be a really, really good get for Nick Saban. So may not jump off the page to a lot of people, but a very solid veteran get for Nick Saban. Kevin Steele and this Alabama defense, and most importantly, the secondary.
Yeah, of course. Because I think it's a guy that they really liked, and so I feel like they were very happy to get him. And this secondary, there's pretty high expectations, I would say. True freshman Caleb Downs coming in. Kool-Aid's supposed to be one of the best corners in D1 football.
Right.
So there's a lot of expectations for this Alabama defense and secondary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a experienced piece that will be able to keep them level-headed and focused.
I agree. I really like the get for him. I'm excited to see what he can do, right? He's one of those guys that a lot of people may be high on in the offseason, and then the moment he doesn't go out and get 3 interceptions or anything like that, people just kind of take him for granted or kind of forget about his name. Definitely someone I'm going to keep an eye on. Tennessee will get the opportunity to go in and play him, so I'll get a good look at him. Let's go to another guy. Another Group of 5 transfers jumped up to the SEC level. This time it's an offensive lineman. It's Lindell Hudson from Florida International, FIU. He makes a jump to Florida, who just produced an NFL talent at the offensive guard spot. He's more of a tackle. Obviously 6'7", 320 pounds. So definitely more of an offensive tackle type, but producing a guy like Osiris Torrance, he comes in, maybe he thinks he's got the opportunity to be another NFL talent on Billy Napier's offensive line. He was a veteran in the CUSA, played a couple years, I want to say 3 or 4 years at FIU before jumping into the portal. So he knows what he's doing. Another very experienced guy who can come in, protect Graham Mertz or Jack Miller immediately, block for Trevor Etienne and Montreal Johnson and all those guys. Solid get. Nothing that'll jump off the page, but a big get for Florida. Let's move on. Transfer running back from Notre Dame, Logan Diggs, Ben. He is still available. If you forgot, he was a dog. 165 carries, 820 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he was only in his junior year. He's in his junior year now, entering the portal from Notre Dame. So well built, 6 foot, 214, got a couple crystal balls to LSU, Ben. Number one, overall thoughts on the running back out of Notre Dame, Logan Diggs. And your second thought, how do you like the fit at LSU? Do you like another team to kind of, come into the race for Logan Diggs?
Yeah, as a junior experienced back in an LSU secondary that I feel like they kind of need a piece, I would say. But I think it would be a great get for LSU. Ole Miss is also in the running for him right now, which would be kind of interesting because he really wouldn't see the field as Quinshon Judkins would.
They have the best running back in college football, so that'd be okay. Top 3 running back in college football, so it'd be tough for him to see the field. We'll get to some hot takes.
Who's the 2?
Yeah.
Who's your 2, Drew? Who's your 2 above him?
I would say top 3, and he ain't 2. Maybe Blake Corum. I'd maybe put Blake Corum ahead of him. I know a lot of people are kind of low on Blake Corum because he's coming off an injury. I still think he's the best back in college football. He gets a lot of opportunities at Michigan. Then it's probably Judkins. And for only a true sophomore, that's pretty scary, Ben. I'm not going to lie to you. Let me make sure I'm not missing anybody because I don't want this to get clipped or I clip it later and just make myself.
Braylon Allen.
Yeah. Again, solid back. I'd still take Quinshon Judkins over him. Let me make sure.
I was waiting for you to say Trey Benson. So.
Yeah. Trey Benson's up there. I don't think he's a top back right now. I think he's going to prove himself to be number 1, number 2 back in the country. This coming up season. Hold on. I'm going to pull it up for you, Ben. I'm going to pull up these running backs that I'm trying to think of. This is just ridiculous. Here we go. Yeah, Raheem Sanders maybe, Donovan Edwards, Will Shipley, Travion Henderson, Nick Singleton, Bucky Irving. I like Judkins and Corum.
Judkins, yeah. He's just a better version of most of those guys, so.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Anyways, sidetrack. Logan Diggs. I like the kid. Yeah. I think he's got what it takes to be a pretty good back at LSU. Obviously, they need someone to put aside or I guess next to Noah Cain right now in that running back room. He's got a 100% crystal ball and 2 predictions over at 24/7. So all signs point to Baton Rouge and Brian Kelly. But with John Emery Jr., a couple other guys not being able to stay healthy or, not really able to pull their weight in the classroom, Kelly needs another running back. I'm sure that's why they're pursuing a guy like Logan Diggs. But that 1-2 punch, Noah Cain, Logan Diggs, inexperience and a little bit coming off an injury. Logan Diggs, that solid back who's going to go out, run for 800, 900 yards in the season in a Notre Dame offense that at times did prove to struggle. So I like Logan Diggs, something to keep an eye on. We'll definitely update you on his commitment. That may be in some later episodes this offseason, this summer, and we'll fill you in. But our last big portal news to get to here, last headline in the portal, that's Keon Coleman. Ben, he still needs to find a home. He's visited FSU, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M in the past couple of days to weeks. And, man, probably the biggest name in the transfer portal right now, Ben. He's somebody that a lot of people are chasing after. He'd be a big get for FSU, kind of that wide receiver 1 or 2, big get for Ole Miss. He'd be plugged into a very, very fun and exciting offense over there. And obviously Texas A&M, you get a guy in Evan Stewart, you find someone, a dog like Keon Coleman to put across from him. That's a nasty duo. So these 3 teams, maybe a couple other horses into their name of the race. But, man, Keon Coleman, big name. He's kind of playing us all right now, just waiting, and then he'll commit. Will see when that happens. Not really a ton of crystal balls right now, but your take here on Keon Coleman, Ben.
Yeah, he's a guy that he will really help out a team no matter what. And, with Ole Miss, I really think he has a high chance to go there. They recently just dismissed Chris Marshall. So It's another loss to their receiving core. So if Lane Kiffin, who is someone that is pretty good at getting people in the transfer portal, if he can get Keon Coleman to that team, I think he could be a big piece. So, yeah.
Yeah, 24/7 has him as a 4th ranked receiver as a transfer. I'd probably say, if not top 3, I'd say he's probably top 3, maybe 2 or 1. I think he's really impactful guy. His size, his frame, his speed. Caught for almost 800 yards last year, a couple of touchdowns for Michigan State. Pair him with a really good QB, whether that be Jackson Dart, whether that be Jordan Travis, whether that be maybe not really good, but a pretty good quarterback in Connor Weigman. I think he's got the opportunity, to kind of shine in this next upcoming season for him. But, Ben, any other transfer portal headlines, anything big you want to touch on, commitments, whirlwind news, anything like that before we jump into our over-under win total and break down kind of the rules of the game for today's episode?
No, I think I'm good.
Well, that is the transfer portal news here in episode 45, brought to you by nothing. I kind of set myself up there. I was going to say brought to you by Southern Boy Sports, but it sounded like I needed a brand, so it didn't really make any sense. Anyways, let's get to our over-under win totals. If you clicked on the video, clicked on the podcast over on Spotify, do appreciate you. Follow our socials. But you know what we're talking here in episode 45. That is the over-under win totals. A lot of sports betting companies have dropped their over-under win totals. A lot of people are, putting the money on it so far this season. We're not betting men quite yet, Ben, but if we were, we're gonna help you. We're gonna guide you through it. If you're listening, need some money, this is over on DraftKings. We're using the over-under win totals per DraftKings. They were the most recent to kind of put it out, so shout out to them. Here are the rules of the game, Ben. We had 4 categories each. We had lock, virtual lock, wouldn't bet on it, and stay away. I'll break that down. Your lock, a team that is going to win more games or going to win less games than what they're marked at. So if they're marked at 6.5, you're 100%, 110% positive they're going over or going under. Up to you. Your virtual lock is a team that is kind of a step down from that. A team you would almost bet your house on. You're pretty sure. Okay, yeah, maybe not your house. You're pretty sure on them. You like what they've got. They could probably go over or under, whatever, respectively, but you're not completely sure. Wouldn't bet on it. It's a team that's really up in the air. You need to see more from them. You wouldn't really bet on them. Just a team to kind of tread lightly with. And stay away, obviously, a team that's really unproven. Really, you don't know, the number's too high, or you don't think the number's in the right spot, and you stay away from them. So we've got 4 of those each, or 1 each, 4 in total. And we're here to break it down for you. Got some pretty good in-episode graphics here for episode 45. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're welcome. If you're listening on podcast, you're not missing too much. We're still breaking down some over-under win totals, which we're excited to do. Ben, do you want to take us away first with lock?
With lock, yeah, I can give you my lock.
All right, let's go lock.
I'll start off with the Colorado Buffaloes at 3. It's a weird. I really do not like a win total being at not a half number, but
Yeah.
3. This Colorado team, the schedule is not easy for sure. Definitely not easy. But I could see them. Okay, the schedule: TCU. It's a new TCU team, new Colorado team, but it I think it could be close. Nebraska, Colorado could win. Colorado State, I would expect to win. Oregon, no. USC, no. The new Arizona State team, maybe.
Toss up.
It's up there. Stanford,
Yep.
you could win.
Yep.
UCLA, it's a new UCLA team too.
It is. Yeah.
Oregon State, new team also. Arizona, definitely could win. Wazoo definitely could win. Utah.
You're not beating Utah. You're not beating.
But look, that I think that no matter what, this team could win 4 games. I think that they have the talent that no matter what, I think at the end of the day, they will get 4 wins on the season. I don't think it might not be a pretty season, but I think they could get 4 games no matter what. It like really all they have to do, you beat Colorado State, you beat Arizona, you beat Stanford, you just have to win 1 more game. And I think that's very doable for that team. And so I think locking it in that they would get the over for here is definitely the move to go.
Yeah, I will say, my take on Colorado is whoever made this out of conference schedule 5-6 years ago when they were scheduling, I don't know what spot you thought Colorado was going to be in. Playing Nebraska, TCU, and Colorado State obviously is a rivalry game, so I understand that.
Yeah.
But that is a rough way to start a new era for Deion Sanders. Obviously, he didn't make the schedule. It's not high school football. He doesn't schedule it a year in advance. It's been set for you. But, Nebraska's not a gimme win. I don't think TCU is a gimme win. I'm going to take that team with more experience and a more experienced head coach in Sonny Dykes. Colorado State, probably a win. I'd be more concerned about them if it was week 1 because then you're kind of trying to find your footing, so I understand that.
Yeah.
Arizona, honestly, you're not guaranteed to beat them.
No, definitely not a guarantee.
Yes, but I think Jalen DeLaura, they're not terrible. Jed Fish is a good, solid, decent Pac-12 coach. Not a gimme.
Dorian Singer.
You do lose Dorian Singer, which stings. But Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, potential true freshman quarterback in Jaden Rashada could be very fun. They got a Colorado transfer receiver and Jalen Tyson, who I forgot to mention. But that's a 4-star transfer receiver who's going to come in and be an immediate impact in Tempe. Stanford should be a win. They got Troy Taylor, their brand new head coach, brand new regime. You lose Tanner McKee. They're going to be god awful. And those big Pac-12 teams, I think you lose Oregon. I think you lose USC. I think you lose Utah for sure. UCLA, like you said, we'll see how they're playing. But I like Colorado. I think I might not have had them as my lock just because they're brand new. So I wouldn't have locked them to win 3 games. You bring in so many new guys, a new head coach, basically flip the roster. Might not have locked them, but it's pretty much common sense. You see 3 wins, 4 wins in that schedule. So I understand it. Ben, let's go to my lock. I got 2 SEC teams to start us, lock and virtual lock. My lock is South Carolina. The South Carolina Gamecocks. This is a team that I'm pretty high on, right? And you may look at their schedule and say, yeah, they've got UNC, they've got A&M, Kentucky, Mississippi State, kind of those games that old South Carolina teams might not have won. I think this is a better South Carolina team than we're used to seeing. You're out of conference. You take on UNC, take on Furman, Jacksonville State, and Clemson. 2 automatic wins against FCS teams in there. I think your lock wins. Here are your lock wins if you're the South Carolina Gamecocks. I think you win Furman. I think you beat Jacksonville State, Battle of the Gamecocks. I think you beat Missouri. I think you beat Vanderbilt, and I think you beat Florida. So there's 5. There's 5 automatic wins right there. Your lock losses, the one game you're guaranteed to lose this season, I think is Georgia. I don't think you beat Georgia. Now, could they pull an upset? It's college football. Anything can happen, sure. But I think if I had to give you a lock loss, it would be Georgia. Your toss-ups, on the other hand, are a UNC team who's really good with Drake May, a Clemson team who's always going to be very solid under Dabo Swinney, although you did beat them last year, and same with Tennessee. A toss-up game for sure. It's hard to beat a team twice in back-to-back years. and then you've got A&M, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. All they have to do is win 2 more of those games, and then they've already overcome 6.5. They are my lock. I think you can beat Kentucky and Mississippi State. I think you can even snag one against North Carolina and Texas A&M. So I like this team to finish with 8 or 9 wins. I think it's a huge, huge, huge prove-it year for Shane Beamer, who's kind of, quote, overachieved the past couple of years for South Carolina. Expectations are beginning to rise for him. You got a returning QB in Spencer Rattler. This is going to be – it's going to be weird for South Carolina, right? Last year they went 8-5, 4-4 in the SEC. They had big wins over Tennessee and Clemson, and those are hard games to repeat. The same thing I keep saying against LSU or for LSU. It's hard to repeat those big wins over a team like in Alabama, stuff like that, right? Their offense is potent. You lose a guy in Marshawn Lloyd, who kind of fought injuries but ran 9 touchdowns 500-plus yards. You lose Jaheim Bell, who was your second leading rusher as a tight end. It's going to be tough, right? Top 70 in points per game last year. Defense was god-awful at 167 in points against per game. And Spencer Rattler did improve, 18 touchdowns, 12 picks. 6 of those 18 touchdowns came against Tennessee, Ben.
Yeah.
1/3 of his season's touchdowns came in one game. That's foolishness. But, yeah, I mean, big portal losses for sure. I mean, you lose Marshawn Lloyd, Jaheim Bell, Austin Stogner. But you grab Trey Knox from Arkansas, Jaron Willis from Ole Miss. You're gaining some guys while also losing some guys. I think this is a good enough team to go out, win 8 games, 7 games in the regular season. I would put a lot of money that they go over this 6-win mark. And, I really like what they got. Maybe a little underwhelming in the portal at 33rd. That's per 24/7. So, Ben, let's get your take on South Carolina. They're my lock over 6.5 wins this season.
Yeah, after stating every stat that you just named, I really don't know why you're a bit confident. You just named how they lost like half of their production, and Rattler has a third of his touchdowns. But one thing that I think will really affect this is where they are playing. Because games like Missouri, A&M, games that you can win, you are away. That could definitely affect things. But you also play like Kentucky at home, Mississippi State at home.
Yep.
Those games could definitely be big. But it depends on whether, like last year, they needed to beat a Tennessee team at home. I don't think you're doing that away at Tennessee this year. I just don't think that's happening. Yep. These fans are definitely they just ruined Tennessee's playoff hopes. I don't think these fans are going to be light on South Carolina, and I don't think the team will be either. But I think that with the guaranteed wins they do have, and with the possibility of just winning 2 or 3 more of those games, I think it's very likely they go over, and I think it would be a decent play to lock on.
Per DraftKings, they've got a plus 10,000 title odds this season. So, hey, you never know. No. You did say they were losing a decent amount of production. They're returning 63% of their offensive production this season, 48% defensive. So they bring back a decent amount of their offense. I think bringing back a guy in Spencer Rattler, a big chemistry piece, obviously. They bring back Antoine Wells. I think that's enough to win you a couple games, just that duo. You bring in Trey Knox from Arkansas to be your starting tight end. He's going to replace Jaheim Bell, who's off to the Seminoles. You bring in those guys to kind of fill that hole. You've got a relatively good backup back. Obviously, losing Marshawn Lloyd to USC, makes the Trojans a extremely scary team this season. But also, you free up some younger running backs to come in and shine. I think just the opportunity for those younger guys to come in and play some running back, I think they are going to be just fine, right? I think they're going to win 7-8 games this season. Yes, they do lose Marshawn Lloyd. Yes, they do lose some of these other guys, but you've got a confident young back in Juju McDowell who should be able to come in, do some stuff. We'll see. And I like what they've got. I like what they've got. So that's my lock, Ben, is the South Carolina Gamecocks. Let's get to your virtual lock. We'll stay in the SEC.
Yeah, my virtual lock, similar to your play, I'm going to go with Ole Miss here. It's a team, though, they're kind of weird because we're not really sure. The quarterbacks, I don't know if they don't trust Jackson Dart or anything like that. It's kind of interesting that they bring in 2 transfer quarterbacks. But I also think with the automatic wins they would have, I think they can definitely get 8 wins on this schedule. You get Mercer, should be a win.
Yep.
Georgia Tech and Haynes King, I would expect to win. Auburn, it's definitely a should-win game. Vandy, definitely a should-win game. UL Monroe, definitely a should-win game. You get to play Texas A&M at home. You get to play Arkansas at home. It's games and a Tulane team that loses Tyjae Spears. They're a different team. They could pull out a win against them. I think with those 5 should-win games, they can win 3 more of those. And they do play Alabama and Georgia, which is last year they almost beat Bama.
Right.
Bryce Young had to carry Bama to that win.
Yep.
So if they could potentially play just as good as they did last year, maybe there's a shot. But so if they can just win 3 of those games, like an LSU, like an Arkansas, like a Mississippi State, Tulane, they will be perfectly fine. And so I like the virtual lock for them.
Yeah, I like the virtual lock as well. I like that play. 7.5 wins. Feels low, like if you're really just looking at it based off their last couple of seasons, winning 8, 9, 10 games, being in those like fringe New Year's Six bowls. I like Ole Miss. I like what they've got going. But when you look deeper into it, it does make sense a little more why they've got a 7.5 win total. You're kind of question marks a little bit. You lose a lot of guys in the transfer portal this past cycle. Not to mention you've got some pretty significant away games, right? At Tulane, you did mention they lose Tyjae Spears. They lose Dorian Williams on the defensive side of the ball. I understand that. But week 2 of the season, you've got a veteran quarterback in Michael Pratt. You've got a very, very veteran head coach in his job in Willie Fritz. You've got guys who have been there for a long time. I don't think Tulane at home is really scared of Ole Miss, if that makes sense. Mercer should be a win, like you said. Georgia Tech is a win. UL Monroe is a win. But going into Tulane in New Orleans, playing the Green Wave, not a gimme game. You have to play at Alabama in an SEC West matchup in September. So that's a tough game. If Alabama can't figure out their quarterback situation, don't get me wrong, it's winnable.
That's the time. That's the time to do it.
Yep. You got to go at Jordan-Hare to play Auburn, which is not a gimme game. We'll see how their offense is rolling. I think you should win, but it's not a gimme to play in a tough SEC environment like that.
SEC game, yeah.
Luckily, like you said, you're home against A&M, you're home against Arkansas, and you're home against LSU. You avoid 2 really, really fun night atmospheres in LSU and A&M, and then obviously Arkansas is no gimme win either. You have to play at Stanford against Georgia. I think that's a loss, but you get to play Vandy. So there are wins to be found in there. I think you have to beat Arkansas. I think you have to beat Arkansas. I think you have to beat Auburn. I think you have to beat Vanderbilt, right? And then you get and then you have to win the Egg Bowl this season. You have to bounce back and win against Miss State. So you go to Starkville for that game. So it's a very balanced schedule. You get some good home games. You get some solid games to play at Vaught Hemingway. And then you have to go travel to Stanford to play in between the hedges. You have to go to Jordan-Hare, play at Bryant-Denny, in Nolans against Tulane. It's not a gimme schedule, but a virtual lock seems like the perfect spot to put them for sure. Let's get to my virtual lock. 3rd straight SEC talk right here, Ben. Vanderbilt. The Commodores of Vanderbilt. It may seem a little obnoxious at first, okay? It may seem just a little bit obnoxious that I have him in this position. We were just talking about how every team that plays them basically gets a free lock win, and that's not exactly how it is for me. I think out of conference, you should handle business. I think you've got 3 out of conference wins right out of the gate. You beat UNLV, you beat Alabama A&M, and you beat Hawaii. Okay? There are those 3 wins that DraftKings thinks they've got, right? Now it's about can they win an SEC game for the 2nd straight season. They beat Kentucky last year. They beat Florida last year. So I think they're lock losses. You lose to Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. I don't think you beat any of those teams. I think they're too veteran. I think they're too fast, too fun of a team. You lose those games. Lock wins are those out-of-conference games, and then basically the whole rest of the schedule is toss-up games. Kentucky, can you beat Kentucky? Can you beat Missouri? Can you beat Florida? Can you beat Auburn? Those are those big toss-up games for you. If you can go in and beat Missouri, there you go. There's your 4th win right there. They're questionable at quarterback with Jay Garcia and Brady Cook battling it out. You know, you bring in some transfers on defense, but you're still relatively young under Eli Drinkowitz. I think the door's open for Vandy. They returned 73% of offensive production. The main thing, and that is the most important part there, is A.J. Swan is back for a full year at a start. Not to mention 56% defensively. So, yeah, you lose key guys. You lose guys like an Anthony Orji, but they're, crystal balled to get a transfer linebacker, a 4-star from Notre Dame. You bring in a DB out of the transfer portal from GVSU, Nizer Forquirin. So he looks like a dog. I cannot pronounce his name at this position in this spot right now. But maybe we'll learn to say his name correctly. But big storyline, Ben. Ray Davis returns. They play Vandy this season, obviously, and Kentucky looks to avoid the 0-2 in 2 years to the Vanderbilt Commodores. So Devin Leary, Ray Davis gearing up for action. Barryon Brown, we saw him not too long ago. You were out there, right, when we saw Barryon Brown?
Yeah.
So, I'm believing in them. I think they can maybe get something done, but yeah, I don't think you beat Tennessee. You'd have to beat them for the first time since 2018. So I don't see that happening. But A.J. Swan is a dog. I really like him. He had a 5-to-1 touchdown interception ratio last year, 1,200 yards, battled a ton of injuries. So I've got belief in this team. Year 3 of Clark Lee moving in the right direction. I'm excited to have Billy Derrick on this, preseason. I think we'll have him on more toward SEC Media Days, or maybe once we're gearing up in early August for the season, because I'm excited to talk some in-depth Vanderbilt Commodores with our guy Billy. Maybe his co-host Will Byram can join us as well. But I'm excited to dive deeper into Vanderbilt. But I think over the win total for Vanderbilt is free money. I think all they've got to do, they've proven that they can win an SEC game. I think they can beat Missouri. They can beat Florida or Kentucky for the second year, and maybe Auburn. We'll see how they're playing late in the season by November 4th. Because if they haven't figured it out, and it's November 4th, and you play at home against Auburn, it's not like you're having to go into Jordan-Hare and win that game. So if they're really struggling all season long and you get the opportunity to give them their 6th or 7th loss of the season, I think the door would be open there. So again, a lot of things they have to play by ear. It's college football. You never really know. But I do like Vanderbilt to overcome that 3-win total. I'd bet the over if I was a betting man, Ben.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Those first 3 of the first 4 games should be wins, and it really comes down to whether they can. I think it comes down to the Will Sheppard AJ Swan connection.
Yep.
I think that they're going to be a big factor in if they win this year, and you get to play Kentucky at home, you get to play Missouri at home,
right?
You get to play Auburn at home. Those are games that you could definitely win, and doing that behind your own fan base, I think there should be a win in the rest of that schedule.
Yeah, I mean, they return Will Sheppard, like you said, and AJ Swan. That's an all-SEC second-team receiver. They return their top 3 receivers this season, Ben, and yards as of last season. Trivia question alert. Episode 45 trivia question, Ben. Over or under 10 bowl games for the Vanderbilt Commodores in school history?
I feel like this shouldn't be difficult, but for some reason, because it's Vandy, it's difficult. I think that the only reason you would have brought it up is if it was under, so I'm going to go under.
9 bowl games in the history of the Vanderbilt football program.
That's terrible.
4-4-1 is their overall bowl record of all time.
They tied?
So they're looking to become bowl eligible for the first time since 2018 under Derek Mason. So I doubt it, but you never know. You never do know. Ben, let's get to your wouldn't bet on it. We're kind of working down the ladder of good bets to bad bets. We're second to last bets. So if you're listening, we wouldn't bet on this one. Ben, hit me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the UCLA Bruins. Mainly because they are a team with a lot of interesting players being added to the program. Carson Steele from Ball State, new ad. Dante Moore coming in as the quarterback. With like Ethan Gabbers, it'll be interesting quarterback room. Our guy Colin Schlee.
I don't know about our guy. I don't know if we want to take him up before he gets drafted in the 4th round of the USFL draft. I don't really know if we're down for that, Ben, but we'll
But I
see.
just think it's a team, right? You start off with not much knowing, playing Coastal Carolina. It's at home, so I would expect a win. San
You
Diego
never
State.
know, though. It's
Yeah,
not like
I know
it's not like you're at home in Neyland Stadium or you're at home in between the hedges. You're at home in an empty concrete building. So
yeah,
it's anything goes. Coastal Carolina is coming across the world. Across the country to come play you. So I'll give you that much. But it's not like the Rose Bowl is a huge home field advantage for the Bruins.
right. And the main thing for an 8.5 is that you have to only lose 3 games. I think that there's a potential loss in Utah, potential loss in USC, and then any other team on here like a Coastal, like a Oregon State, like a not really any other team, but they do have a schedule on the easier side. But the thing is, it's a new team, new players. Dante Moore doesn't really know much. They bring in a lot of new talent, after losing Charbonnet and DTR. So I just wouldn't bet on this team, not because the schedule or the over under is crazy, but because we're just not sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you made a perfect point there. Like, you're not going to bet the over, but I also wouldn't bet the under. Like, it's not like we really know. This team could go out and only lose 2 games. You could lose to USC and Utah, and they're your 2 losses, and you go 10-2. But you could also lose a game to Coastal Carolina. You could lose to Utah, Oregon State, drop an upset to Arizona State, and lose to USC. And then there's an under. So, plus an unproven team at home against Colorado. So, we really don't know. Like you said, I'm really excited for Dante Moore, whether it's him or Ethan Garbers or Colin Schlee. I doubt it, but I would say it's Dante Moore if I had to give you a prediction. But yeah, a relatively tough out-of-conference schedule. I mean, Coastal Carolina and San Diego State are 2 of the better Group of 5 programs. And then you get NC Central at home, which is a almost guaranteed win. But, I mean, I think you've got wins over North Carolina State. You're guaranteed wins. You got North Carolina State, Stanford, Arizona, Cal. There are your 4 wins. I think you can beat Wazoo, Colorado, Arizona State, maybe Oregon State. Like, it's a lot of question marks around the program. Wouldn't bet on it. Is really just a lot of unproven teams. You're going to, and my team is a little bit unproven in a different fashion, but still unproven. I just think you're really just, it's too risky to go out and bet on this team to go over 8.5 wins because you just haven't seen him play. I believe in Chip Kelly. I think he's a very solid college coach. He's proven to be a really good coach to get teams to bowl games and win them. Unfortunately, they lost last year in the Sun Bowl to Pitt, but that's not the point. They've got a pretty favorable schedule, like you said, with a couple tough games sprinkled in. Keep an eye on UCLA, a team that really replaces a lot of their skill position players. Like you said, Carson Steele comes in for Charbonnet. DTR is out. New quarterback is in. So we will see. My wouldn't bet on it, Ben. A new team in the Big 12, the UCF Knights. Now, UCF's over-under win total by DraftKings is set at 6.5 right now. I wouldn't bet on it at all. I wouldn't put any type of money on the UCF Knights and Gus Malzahn this season. They've got 3 out-of-conference schedule games. I'd say one of them, maybe 2 of them, is a lock win. That's Kent State, that's Villanova, and that's at Boise State. I think you could lose to Boise State on the road. I'm not going to lie. Kent State and Villanova at home should be the walk in the park. The reason I'm a little weary on this team is they are a huge wild card. It is a new conference. It's going to be huge if they can compete with teams like West Virginia, like Kansas, like Oklahoma State. Right? I would just stay away. You're in a new conference. We're unsure if they can compete at this level consistently. Right? And I do have confidence in John Reese Plumlee, in Gus Malzahn, but they need to prove themselves. They need to prove that they can go out and beat Iowa State by 2 touchdowns. They need to go out and prove that they can beat West Virginia, right? We haven't really seen it. They got blown out. I don't want to say blown out. They lost by 17 points in their bowl game last year against a decent group of or Power 5 opponent in Duke last year in the Military Bowl. I don't know. I'll give them 3 lockdown, 100% sure wins. Kent State, Villanova, and Houston. So there are your 3 lock wins. Can they compete with the Cincinnati's, West Virginia's, Kansas's, Baylor's, Texas Tech's, Oklahoma State's, and Boise State's? Those are their toss-up games right there. Can they beat West Virginia or Kansas or Cincinnati? I do think they can beat Cincinnati. Boise State, Cincinnati, 2 of the more winnable games there. But you're looking at a Big 12 dark horse in Texas Tech, a solid Dave Aranda coach team in Baylor, Oklahoma State, who's really well coached always finds a way to win 6-7 games. It's going to be a huge prove-it year for UCF. Can they compete? Can they do their thing in the Big 12? We know they can do it in the AAC. They made the AAC championship game, won 9 games last season. Very phenomenal group of 5 team. They went 13-0 under Josh Heupel not too long ago. So we know they can win games. Can they win at this level is the question. My lock loss is former Kansas State and Oklahoma. So I don't think they beat those teams. I do think they could scratch out 7 wins, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go 5-7. So I like Gus Malzahn. He knows how to win on the Power 5 level, at least win 8-9 games a season. It's about these younger guys. Are they going to be in a position to go out and beat Baylor, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, those middle-of-the-road Big 12 teams?
Yeah, and in my opinion, I think they set up the schedule almost perfectly. You get an easy one against Kent State at home, an easy one against Villanova at home. If you can manage to beat Boise State on the road, I don't think Boise State is a good team, but it is away, and it is an interesting matchup. But going into the later part of the season, at home against an Oklahoma State team that lost a lot, that is a very winnable game.
Yep.
At home against a Houston team, very winnable game. West Virginia, an interesting team you can win, and I think at home could give you the edge. So that's almost 6 wins right there. If you can manage somehow to beat Baylor at home, beat another team like a Cincy away, they are able to get 6.5 wins. But I kind of agree with you where it's just I wouldn't trust it. It's doable. I think it's kind of like UCLA. Like it could happen, but I just wouldn't trust it, and I just wouldn't go down that path in betting.
Yeah, I mean, they had the 7th best over-under win total number per DraftKings, like I said. They got the 7th best in the Big 12 in their new team. So I think Vegas has got a lot on them. I think they like UCF. I think a lot of insiders and national media members do like the UCF Knights. I don't have anything against them, but there's a lot more proven, better. We've seen them compete at the Power 5 level for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. No reason to go out on a limb and take a brand new team with that weary 6.5 win total. They return majority of their offense and defensive production, 62%, 69%. I mean, they're a pretty good offense, 33 points per game. You had John Reese Plumlee, who ran for 862 yards and 11 touchdowns last season on the ground. Dude, this kid's a freak. Not to mention 2,500 yards, 14 touchdowns through the air. He also plays baseball. He's an all-around athlete. And then the backfield, Isaiah Bowser, R.J. Harvey, 2 of your top 3 receivers returning. You've got a lot returning. You got a lot going in the right direction if you're UCF. I've got a confidence in them, but I wouldn't put money on them. So I like UCF. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't bet on them. I'd steer just a little clear of them. Let's go to our stay away, our last pick of the night here, Ben. Last pick of episode 45 here on the over-under win total segment. Kick it off. Stay away pick.
My stay away, I actually have 2 teams, and we're going to stay in the Big 12. I've got Texas and OU. They both are at 9.5. And just the main thing with these teams is I even though one of them is my team, I just do not trust them. Only losing 2 games on the year is something that I do not see from teams that were very inconsistent last year. Oklahoma literally went 500, under 500, and the win total is that they're going to win 10 games. It's a high jump. I wouldn't trust it just yet. I need to see Oklahoma win more games before I would bet on anything like that. Texas is a team that went 8-5, very rocky. You have to play at Alabama, basically a loss. Neutral against Oklahoma, could lose. At Baylor, could lose. At TCU, could lose. I think there's there's 3 losses in both of these teams' schedules based on the inconsistency of these two teams. So I would not bet on these two teams after not seeing much that would make me trust them.
Yeah, I think Texas is being I'm going to fall in the trap probably this year. I don't really care. I think Texas is still kind of in that thing where it's like, I mean, Texas is never really bad. I mean, Texas, whatever. That might be true, right? Texas could go out and go 8-4 this season, but it's college football. Got to take a couple risks. I think Texas is a team who could win 10 games. I don't think they're going to be in the playoff. I don't think they're that good. I think Steve Sarkisian's a good coach under Nick Saban. He's got that experience. You got Quinn Ewers. You got a really, really good tight end in Sanders. You got a pretty good running back room, good receivers, good Georgia transfer in A.D. Mitchell, a solid defense. I don't think the Alabama game's out of question. I think they go in. I think they pound TCU. I don't think that's a close game. There are 3 losses in there. Don't get me wrong. I'd stay away from them as well. I think it's too risky to go out and bet on a 6-win and an 8-win team from 2022, 2023 to win double-digit games. And I definitely wouldn't bet the under because I think they are definitely on the uptick, on the rise. But to bet the over, I just think that's way too risky. I definitely stay away from it. Oklahoma, and I swear to God, I'm not even kidding. Like, I think Ben Clay himself could have designed the schedule for Oklahoma, and it could not have been easier. Like, and I'm not kidding. Like, they play Arkansas State, SMU, and Tulsa out of the gate. Then they play newcomer Cincinnati, who has lost their entire team, basically. They play Iowa State in Norman. Neutral site game against Texas. That's a tough one. Newcomer UCF at home. You play Kansas, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, BYU, and TCU. I mean, what in the world is that? You don't have to play. You're talking about you do have to play Texas. That's a good team. But you're not even having to play Baylor. You're not even having to play
Kansas State
or Texas Tech, who could be really good this season with a healthy Tyler Shuck. So you dodged the bullet there. I understand where Vegas is coming from because it's a very favorable schedule. If I had to pick 2 losses, I might say Texas and Kansas, but
yeah,
I mean, I don't see you're going to lose this game. I don't see. I think I would honestly. I could see him going 10-2 and 11-1. I like Oklahoma to win 10 games a lot more than I like Texas, but I understand as a fan, you don't really have that same confidence. You never really know. I'm the same way with Tennessee. They were going to be my stay away pick, but I had too many SEC teams. So I'd like to say I was going to go with Tennessee, but I had 3 SEC teams. I couldn't do that. But I like Texas to win 10 games just because their schedule is so favorable. They get some tougher games at home and some easier road environments like a BYU, like a Cincinnati. They get to play at Oklahoma State, who's not an easy environment, but favorable to Texas or West Virginia, who's a really good environment. So I like the picks there, Ben. Let's go to my stay away pick. Let's go to the ACC. Let's go to Miami. This is a surprise to Ben because I had Tennessee when we were talking about it, but I had to change it up a little bit. I went through progressions and I said, you know what? I'm not picking another SEC team. So we went with Miami. They're at a conference. They play their fellow Miami of Ohio. They play A&M, Bethune-Cookman, Temple, and a bye week. Those are their first 5 games. Miami, Ohio, Texas A&M, Bethune-Cookman, at Temple, bye week. Well, butter my biscuits. That could be 4 straight wins and then a bye against some of the easiest teams to play in college football. So there you go. But you've got some tough toss-ups against North Carolina State, against North Carolina, and against Louisville. Those are 3 teams that you haven't proven to be able to beat. You beat Virginia by 2 points last year. 2 points. You beat Virginia 14-12 in Tony Elliott's first year. I think you lose to Clemson. I think you lose to Florida State. I think they could play both teams close. I think if Tyler Van Dyke comes in dialed in 2023, they could compete with those teams. I don't think they win. I think you beat Miami of Ohio. I think you beat Bethune-Cookman, Temple, Georgia Tech, Virginia, and Boston College, who's just a dumpster fire right now. So there's 5. They went 5-7 last year, right? But they went 5-7, 3-5 in the ACC. This team is so questionable because they bring in a new slate of offensive coordinators. You're in year 3 of Tyler Van Dyke. Year 1 looked like he could win the Heisman. And then year 2 looked like he could be an undrafted free agent in the NFL draft. So there was 2 different Tyler Van Dykes that we saw. We don't really know which one to believe. Josh Gaddis is out the door. You bring in Shannon Dawson, who I think could be really good. You bring in Lance Guidry from Marshall, who has head coach experience at McNeese State. He's very, very experienced. I like the offensive and defensive coordinator hires at Miami, but you lose to MTSU last year. You lost to Texas A&M at home, right? None of your wins are guaranteed, and that's why I'd stay away from them completely. You go 5-7, right? This year, you do return 62% of offensive production. You bring back TVD. You bring back Henry Parrish Jr. in the backfield, so you can progress those guys, get those guys better. Get Tyler Van Dyke back on his 2021 game where he threw for 2,900 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 6 picks. I mean, this guy was just a dog. And then 2022, he throws for 1,800 yards, 10 interceptions. 10 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So I think it's a tough game against A&M. That's a much improved team, right? And it's only year 2 under Mario Cristobal. I think going 6-6, 7-5 this season isn't a complete failure. And I think this team could go out and win 8-9 games if they're really locked in. If we see what we think we see out of some true freshmen, they had a really good recruiting class, right? I'm not saying they can't win the 8 games. It's just too much of a wild card team. Some easy games could be dropped, or the Canes could compete at a high level, right? It's just too soon to tell. I just wouldn't bet on them personally, Ben. Are you in the same boat? What do you think about Miami? Their over-under win total.
It's for a stay away. I feel like it's more like I wouldn't bet on it because really I could see them. You beat Miami, Ohio. You get a home game against Texas A&M. You want revenge. I think you can win that game. Bethune-Cookman and Temple. That's 4-0. You're off to a hard start, a quick start, and then you play Georgia Tech. Definitely can win. Away against North Carolina, I don't really like it. Home against Clemson, don't really like it. Virginia, winnable game. NC State, winnable game.
I think
if they can pull out, if they can beat NC State, get the home win against Louisville, and then beat Boston College, that they are competing for 8 wins. And, I don't really – North Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State are all automatic. It really determines whether this team can be consistent enough to not lose to the teams they should beat like they did last year. So I think it depends on how consistent they are and if they got better from last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely got better. Excuse me. I think Mario Cristobal took a step in the right direction, getting Dawson, getting Guidry in there. I guess I'm thinking if it was my money, I would stay away from Miami completely. Just too soon to tell. A 5-7 team with a second-year head coach, a quarterback coming off a career down year. Just too much at this point. You do have a good recruiting class. You bring in a good transfer class headed by my guy, Francisco Mauigoa. So I like what they're building. I like what they've got. Not saying they're not going to go out and win 8 games. I think it's possible. Like you said, you rattle off that schedule and found 8 wins. I think it's possible. But I wouldn't bet on it. I'd stay away from it if I was a betting man. Maybe if you're a Miami fan, you're feeling a little lucky. Do your thing. But, Ben, that flew by. I'm not going to lie. I thought we were sitting at 48, 49 minutes. 58 minutes, just under an hour mark. So thank you guys for listening. Been a great episode. Over-under win totals. Very solid way to continue our way through a very tough, dry off season. Not dry, but a tough, we got content out of our ears over here, Ben.
What?
I'm just saying we've got content to work with. We're not just out of content is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Any objections before we end off the 45th episode of the show?
No, I'm all right.
Well, this has been the 45th episode of the Southern Boys Sports Podcast. Make sure to head on over to universitytraditions.biz. They're to sponsor today's episode. Code SBS15 at checkout for 15% off of your purchase. 5-star review over on Spotify. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at @so_boy_sports on Twitter. Inching near 300 followers. Go follow at Southern_boy_sports pod on Instagram. Get us to 100 over there. You'll get a notification every time that a new episode is out. We make a post for it. So stay in tune with the Southern Boys. We continue to try and build. We are past episode 45 now. Thank you for tuning in. Same time, same place next week. See you, boys.